to reason. Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This is the Atheist Experience. We're live. It's Sunday, July 22nd, 2012. I'm at Dillahunty. I just almost spilled my water all over the table. This is Jen Peoples. Welcome.
Thank you. I would have laughed if you had.
Well, as long as I didn't fry any electronic devices. We're coming to you live from Austin, Texas, the public access studio there. And this is a live call-in show. We'll have the number up for you shortly. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Surviving the heat.
Yeah, and actually, I find it kind of funny because last year we had just a miserable drought, and it was insanely hot all year to the point where we even had a governor, praying for rain.
Yeah.
And this year, the rest of the country is going through drought and extreme heat. And actually, I've found it quite nice around here, and a lot of rain in the last few weeks. So clearly, the lack of prayers.
Yes.
Much better.
Well, and we did point out the fact last year that the weekend that we had the Texas Free Thought Convention in Houston, it rained like hell all over the place out here. So, yeah, the governor prays for rain. The state burns to the ground. The atheists have a convention, and it rains. So,
Clearly, the clouds are smiling at us.
of course.
So, yeah, we'll be taking live calls in a little bit. Before we actually get started, you've got something that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I want to talk about godparents because we get email from people from time to time who ask, hey, I've been asked to be a godparent. In fact, let me read you a couple of emails here. One of them, I'll leave the names out. It says, I'm due to become a godfather to my niece next month. What I'm having trouble with, guys, is the ceremony and all the praying for sins. Okay. Another person writes in and says, what do you and the other atheists think about godparents? Do you have a godfather? Did you have a godfather? Do your children have one now? Is it bad to have a godfather? Or to call a person a godfather? And another one says, my friends asked me to be the godfather of their son, which is a big honor for us, but that implies going to the church and listening to what the priest has to say about baptism. So clearly there's some confusion out there, even among people who were raised in a church, about what being a godparent means. And we get similar questions about people baptizing their children. I'll leave that for another topic, but I wanted to talk a little bit today about what's a godparent, and what are the duties of a godparent, what are the qualifications to be a godparent. So basically, a godparent is someone who sponsors a person's baptism. So when you present your child for baptism, or christening as some denominations call it, you will have someone who speaks on behalf of the child. In infant baptism, most denominations require some kind of confession of faith, which of course the infant is incapable of doing. So the godparents and the parents do that. For adults, historically, early in the Catholic Church, there was some persecution going on. And so the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages in particular required someone else to attest to the character of the person who is asking to join the church. And also this person's role was to assist that person in meeting the obligations of being a faithful church member. So those historical roles of a godparent have carried forward through today. And so there are different denominations, and each denomination kind of has its own requirement for who can be a godparent. In some cases, it can be the parents. In some cases, it specifically can't be the parents. So, for example, in the Episcopal Church or the Anglican Church, Church of England, whatever, the requirement is that the godparents be baptized and confirmed in the church. Okay, and some cases it's a little bit ambiguous there. It doesn't specifically say you have to be baptized and confirmed in the Episcopal Church, but that's kind of implied. For the Catholic Church, you have to be a confirmed Catholic, and you have to have participated in communion. and you cannot be the child's parent. So it has to be someone else. For Lutherans, you got to be baptized and confirmed in the church. For Orthodox Christians, it's usually the best man or the bridesmaid from the wedding, the couple's wedding. Okay? And there's also a requirement that this person or persons be in good standing with the church. For Methodists, it can be the parents, but their specific requirement is that it be a mature, reliable Christian. And of course, Baptists, you can talk about Baptists here. Baptists don't do infant baptism.
That's correct.
So you don't have to have a godparent if you're a Baptist, because you're expected to make your own confession of faith.
That's absolutely correct.
So anyway, what your requirements are, if you're asked to be a godparent and you're an atheist, you probably need to have a conversation with the people who are asking you to do this, because this is a specific religious role here. So some of your responsibilities include take an active role in the child's upbringing and personal development. The godparent also instructs the child in the faith, especially if the parents have failed to do this. Also serve as a witness to the faith and help the child attain salvation. A little tough to do if you reject the concept of salvation. And in some denominations, you might even be responsible for naming the child.
Which would be so awesome.
Yeah.
I dub the Satanus.
Hitchens.
Yes.
Anyway, so these are some of the responsibilities, and you can see most of those are overtly religious responsibilities. So, there's this idea that, being a godparent is an honor, and I suppose it might be, but if you've been asked to be a godparent, you really need to investigate what it is they expect of you and what are the requirements, because as an atheist, you may not even meet the requirements to be a godparent.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we understand the history of it, we understand the religious aspect of it. The thing is, a lot of people who are saying, hey, I'd like you to be my baby's godparents, don't have the first clue what any of those are. So it may be that they're asking you to just be the person who, jumps in when they're unavailable, or any number of things. But it's always good to most definitely ask and find out what exactly is it that I'm expected to do.
Yeah.
Well,
and that kind of gets to this popular misconception about what a godparent is supposed to do. A lot of people think that a godparent is the person who cares for the child in the event the parents meet some untimely demise.
Yeah, that's not quite it.
Yeah, and actually, you can't transfer custody of a child or designate a guardian for your child with a baptismal certificate.
Yeah.
So the godparents have no legal claim to custody of a child, of their godchild. And if you want to designate a guardian for your child, you need to do that in a will or some other legal document, not by saying you're going to be the godparent. So that's what I have on godparents. Hopefully that helps some people that have been asked to do this.
Yeah, the big thing is if they don't know that you're a non-believer and they ask you to do this, I agree. You should always ask exactly what it is that you're going to be expected to do. Maybe what they're expecting from you is something that you can do, even without letting them know. I mean, if for example, you're not out to this individual and they're asking, you need to find out exactly what they're asking, because if they're assuming some sort of religious obligation, then you might have to bow out, which might mean you end up outed. It depends on how the situation goes. But it's not. I wouldn't do it in any of the senses that are religious. But as far as the more social, that aspect of it, sure, I have no problem at all. Of course, it's also a responsibility.
Yeah.
So, it depends on how much weight you want to actually take on your shoulder. Okay. This is a live call-in show. We'll have the number up for you right away, but we've already got people on the lines, and we're going to go ahead and get started with Greg and Eugene. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me, and so sorry to be inconvenient with calling in with a mobile phone.
Oh, well, we'll make do.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. And by the way, just on the topic you guys were talking about, godparents, I really think that atheists could stand to come up with, or do good to come up with an alternate term, like a pasta parent, for lack of a better example, because that's something I volunteered to do for some friends of mine when they had a kid back when I was no longer a member of any organized religion, but not quite an atheist. I volunteered to be the godfather of their kid, in the sense that if the kid needs something, needs some help, can't get a hold of the parents, I'm the guy that can come in and help. Or worst case scenario, make sure that they're taken care of if something happens. And I haven't even talked to that guy in years because we had a bad incident. But if he called me up out of the blue and needed some help with his kids, I'd still do it. I just think it'd be cool if that wasn't called godparent anymore.
Well, I think we actually have a perfectly good term for something like that. And it's called a mentor. You know,
I can dig that.
If you want to be the mentor of a child, that's great. And wouldn't it be great if we had designated people in a child's life to, instead of instruct them in the mysteries of the faith, we could instruct them in the scientific method.
Or even beyond childhood. I think a lot of young adults, when people are hitting the outer edges of teen into early 20s, that's when you need somebody to come along that's not necessarily a parent or a family member that can show you a couple of little tricks of the so-called real world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
so what'd you have for us?
For a different reason. Wanted to talk to you guys about the concept of a soul, because I'm one of the few atheists I know, not that I know many atheists, who believes in that.
Okay.
Okay.
And first, I suppose I should start off with a definition, because that's such a nebulous term that means different things to different people. But to me, it's the biochemically generated electricity that runs my body, that causes my brain to work, that produces consciousness, which will cease to function as it currently does when I'm dead. It's basically a one-use thing that was created inside of my mom when her and my dad did the things that parents do. And when I'm dead, all of those electrons and protons will go do something else, much in the same way that when you take apart a nice sculpture made out of Legos, the same pieces exist, but that sculpture doesn't.
Sure, but you started off by saying that it's the electricity, not for example, consciousness. But in any case, I don't know what justification you have for calling either one of those a soul. I mean, we've already got a word that works perfectly well for electricity.
Well, I think that that's pretty much the only thing that to me makes sense as what is a soul, the thing that generates my consciousness, that allows that to happen, and that is a very temporary and permanent thing that's going to go away someday.
Why? I'm still not saying. It sounds to me like you like the. Can you turn down your stream, because I can hear myself echoing? But it sounds to me like you like the idea of a soul, so now you're trying to find some way to make it so that the soul is real, and you're taking the electricity in your body and relabel
and unmagicate the concept of the soul as a way to basically help people get over the biggest fear that anyone I know has, especially when the whole concept of atheism comes up. What happens after you die?
Well,
and that used to scare the crap out of me, until I read a really great quote by Mark Twain about how he wasn't inconvenienced about all the billions of years that he didn't exist before he was born.
What the hell does that have to do with redefining something as a soul?
Because I think that a lot of people need baby steps when it comes to letting go of superstition. To quote the once great poet Axl Rose, you can use your illusions, let them take you where you may.
Hey, I tell you what, if I wanted a conversation with Axl Rose, I'd go to the...
illusions to throw them all
Holy
away.
crap.
They're throwing away the biggest ones, and that's what I'd just like to put out there for people who are having trouble just redefining their entire worldview. There's a small little bridge to, or raft to stand on as you're floating into the river of knowledge that you can eventually hop off of on the shore to more knowledge.
Yeah, I find that notion, first of all, extremely condescending, vapid, and stupid, that we should go around renaming things, real things, with labels that have another meaning. By the way, when you call in and say that you're one of the few atheists you know who believe in a soul, and then you define soul in such a way that it actually applies to something real, but it has nothing to do with soul as it's normally used, I find that to be incredibly dishonest, and I can't believe that believers aren't going to find it similarly dishonest. Why on earth? You know, you're saying, oh, I want to take this term that means so much to people and redefine it so that it actually maps to something real. Well, cool. Let's redefine God to mean my coffee cup. Does that actually do anything?
Actually, I've redefined God to be a psychological model for where humanity's collective head is at,
Sure.
as we continue to try and pull it out of our ass, because most people nowadays believe in one God as opposed to several dozen, which tells me that humanity's maybe trying to get on the idea of everybody being somewhat equal and not so divisive, even though we're still horribly screwing it up. And I think the evolution of ideas and moving away from superstitions, for a lot of people like me, it's not just an easy way to change everything that I've ever held, and I don't find it dishonest to redefine the soul as this. I find it to be, this is the only thing that makes sense in the mystical mumbo-jumbo concept that I grew up believing as a kid because I didn't know any better. The idea that some mystical, magical, indefinable energies that will always be me exist doesn't really make sense anymore. The best I can figure out is this concept that I was told about that people have believed in for millennia since before I came along. It's an overextension of just this one element of our condition that we can't figure out, consciousness, why we're able to ask the question why we're here. And that to me, the only thing that remains as any kind of plausible or acceptable idea for the soul being real in any sense is it's our conscious identity, which is a very temporary thing, which is going to go away someday. And
didn't you also
crap at me?
Didn't you also say that you believed in the afterlife?
In a very limited extent, it's.
I'm ready for another redefinition.
My definition of the afterlife is more likely than not when I die, I will have a very slow, delusional state, similar to what is often described as a near-death experience.
That's
and
not after death.
My
That's
body
not.
will be decomposed.
That's not after death. You said you're talking about afterlife, not the process of dying. Do you believe there's an afterlife?
In the typical definition of my identity will continue to exist forever, no.
Okay.
I believe
now,
that
you also don't believe in a soul by the typical definition, correct?
No. I'm offering a new definition because new definitions come up all the time as people figure out more things, kind of like the definition that most people I know have ever had.
Thanks so much. But when you find out something's not true, you jettison it. You don't need to come up with a new label for it. But thanks a lot for calling, Eugene or Greg. All right, we got Brent in Costa Mesa. How are you?
We got Brent in Costa Mesa. All right, so do I need to turn down my...
Yeah, turn it down.
All right, guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just get right into my question. I've seen quite a few episodes of the show, and a while back you addressed the question of if the Big Bang's real, who started the Big Bang? Because what you did in that specific episode is provide a link, a domain to go to, and I took a look, and guy had like a decent idea of how it began, scientifically provable. And from what I gathered from it, he was trying to say that when there's nothing, you have a vacuum, and just like taking all the air out of a bottle of wine, for example, is if you actually take it all out, there will be an explosion. The glass will explode. So I guess that goes back to the laws of physics. And so I'm calling in to ask who who came up with the laws of physics? Who put all that there?
What makes you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, the laws of physics, any scientific law is not something someone came up with. These are observations.
They're descriptive laws. They're not prescriptive laws. Nobody wrote them like thou shalt not exceed 55 miles per hour on the freeway. This is just a description of how particles interact in the universe.
Okay.
You could validly ask, why are the laws of physics as they are instead of some alternative? But the question, who wrote the laws of physics, or who created the laws of physics, that is a nonsensical question.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, in your opinion, I did watch this video, but unfortunately, I'm a pretty smart guy, but unfortunately, it's above my head. A lot of the terminology I've never heard of.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about Lawrence Krauss's A Universe from Nothing?
Yeah, I believe that's the one. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
So is there a way to a little simpler terminology to describe how the Big Bang happened?
You're calling the wrong show.
Yeah, I'm not a cosmologist, so I guess Lawrence Krauss is probably the best guy to break it down for you. I mean, this is what he does.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely took a look at that. Do you mind if I just ask another question?
Sure.
Okay, so apparently there's been, we'll call it, for lack of a better word, missing link bones found that kind of show a difference from, let's say, a human and a monkey, right? To my knowledge, something like 24 highly incomplete skeletons. Okay, so we've got 24 skeletons of what would be a missing link, but how many T-Rex bones do we have? And it's like significantly more. And I'm wondering why we have such incomplete missing, let's call it missing link bones, such incomplete and so few, whereas where we have very complete T-Rex or whatever dinosaur you want to specifically talk about.
Wow, there's so much wrong with that question. It's really kind of hard.
Yeah.
First of all, T-Rex is a single species for which we have a number of examples of, but we don't have all the transitional forms between T-Rex and its precursors. So you're comparing transitional forms between two species over time with a single species, so you're comparing apples and oranges to begin with.
Okay, you're right. I probably didn't phrase that correctly, but I think you kind of led me into the question I was trying to ask, is why don't we have, maybe a better question would be, why don't we have those transitional forms?
We have we have lots of transitional forms, and one of the key things is that everything is a transitional form. Why don't we have more fossils in the fossil record? It's because fossils are very difficult and only occur under certain circumstances. So we're lucky that we have any at all. But we don't need fossils at all to demonstrate common ancestry between humans and the rest of the great apes. I mean, we can do that with genetics alone.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, curious why there aren't fossils though.
Well, because fossilization only occurs under very specific conditions.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you think everything that ever died became a fossil?
To be honest with you, in some form, I suppose, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, they're pretty rare.
Okay, I had no idea.
Not only that, but in some cases where there may be a bunch of fossils, you can't get to them because they're buried in rock. I mean, it's not like we're going to go dynamiting the entire planet in the hopes of getting down multiple layers of rock to find fossils. We find we do it the easy way, partly because we're lazy and partly because it's practical, and that is you go to areas where, due to tectonic shift, etc., the plates have moved such that older rock is now up on top where it's handy for us to get to. You can't always get to the older rock.
Okay.
But anyway, thanks a lot.
Yeah, that definitely, I'm glad I could learn something new there.
Sure. I'd recommend stopping by Talk Origins, and there's a lot of good information there about all this stuff. But thanks so much for calling, Brent.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Got Mark in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. How are you?
Oh, hi, Matt. Hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
I was just wondering, this year being an election year, why not more atheist groups perhaps emphasize the fact that there are quite a number of atheists in the U.S. I think, what was the number, about 15%? The numbers I was hearing.
I think the nuns are up to 19% now.
Yeah, something like that.
But that doesn't necessarily mean atheists. So.
Yeah. Well, we actually are pretty open about, I mean, the secular community as a whole is actually much more active now than we have been previously. Are you familiar with the Secular Coalition?
Just vaguely, mostly from programs like yourself and other things on the net.
All right, so Secular Coalition is a lobbying group in Washington that actually lobbies on behalf of secular issues and secular Americans. So,
and that's, the Secular Coalition for America is also branching out and having state chapters for all of those. There are a number of individual groups that are working on the local level. There's a lot of reasons why it hasn't been more prevalent. And first of all is that, despite the fact that our numbers are increasing, we're still a much misunderstood and maligned minority. The other thing is that some organizations are, for example, nonprofit organizations that are limited in what they can do with regard to politics. We're not barred entirely, but we still have limitations. Like, for example, the ACA can't lobby, or if we're a 501c3, a 501c4 could. There are more and more people getting involved. We are doing nothing but growing. We are doing nothing but getting bigger and getting more vocal. So it's happening. But the one thing is that a lot of people still aren't comfortable. They still email and say, oh, I'm the only atheist in my neighborhood, or I'm the only one I know, or I'm the only one in my city. And there are people who are afraid to come out. As long as we're still having conferences where people, like at the Secular Student Alliance, if you had a blue lanyard on, you were out, and people could take pictures of you and post them. But if you were not out, you wore a red lanyard. You don't see that at conferences for religious organizations where there are people who are still not willing to say who they are. So those of us who are out and active need to continue doing so we can create a world where everybody else can be out and active as well. It's just going to take time.
It's just that, I see whenever elections come around, all the politicians, like, let's say they'll go to New York and they'll go to a Jewish synagogue and put on, I forget the name of it, that beanie thing, and they'll participate in the ceremonies and that to show that they're just fine and great with the Jewish community.
Yeah, that's because there's money.
Yeah.
And there is a potentially unified or voting bloc. It's not necessarily unified, but there is the impression of a unified voting bloc, and that is, oh, if I appeal to Jews, or if I want to appeal to Jews and get the Jewish vote, then I need to have this position on this issue. And one of the things about atheists is that we don't necessarily share the same position on a number of different things. The only unifying factor is the disbelief in a God. There are a number of other factors that seem fairly ubiquitous with regard to human rights and equality and things like that. And yes, by and large, atheists are going to trend more liberal, but that doesn't mean that a politician taking a position on X that agrees with the majority of atheists is likely to get the majority of atheists' votes. Because the things that, by and large, we're most passionate about are the things that are directly opposed by the majority who are more vocal and have more money and do have a unified voting bloc. When they can have preacher X get up in front of his congregation, even though he's a 501c3, and say, no, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but the Democrats are evil atheist baby killers who want to destroy God's country. And it's so incredibly dishonest on every possible level. But things are getting better.
Well, and I would also add that a lot of the noise that you hear coming from the most religious, the most fundamentalist groups, it's not because they have a lot of people backing them up. It's just that they're used to screaming and having a tantrum when they don't get their way. And you're seeing a lot of that now with the healthcare mandate for birth control coverage. This is something that's universally popular among the American public, especially for women. And, you know, you would think that Western civilization will end now because they're now required to cover birth control. Not churches, okay, but if a religious organization owns a business and they serve the general community, then they're not exempt from this mandate. And you would think that, you know, we have wiped our feet on the First Amendment or something like that to hear them talk, but that is not the truth. And in fact, this kind of mandate has broad appeal to a lot of people. So I wouldn't interpret the noise that a lot of people make as indicating they have necessarily a majority about things. And I will also point out that the ACA publishes a voter's guide. I think we've published, what, 2 or 3 previously? 2?
We've done it twice.
2? Yeah, okay. So every 2 years we've published a voter's guide, and we've asked potential, you know, people seeking elected office throughout Texas to give us their views on a range of topics. And a lot of it has to do with, you know, teaching real science in public schools versus creationism or intelligent design, you know, teaching comprehensive birth control or sex education instead of abstinence only, things like that. Things that are of interest to not just specifically atheists, but to skeptical people in the general population. So, you know, we're doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I honestly, I do wish that, you know, atheists and, well, perhaps liberals should be a little more aggressive than they are as well. Because I look on the television, I watch what goes on in the States, especially with Fox so-called news and whatnot, and it scares the crap out of me.
That's because you're Canadian.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Our conservatives are basically probably farther left than the Democrats there.
Well, I don't know so much about that. But anyway,
if I can, just one little thing to point out is that well, here in Canada we've got about 40 million people, and if the numbers are roughly correct, there in the U.S. there's at least 45 million atheists. So that's just something to consider. There are more atheists in the U.S. than there are people total here in Canada. So, you know, it's just something to consider.
That's interesting.
Yeah. If we take everybody in Canada and move them down here, the atheists could just take over Canada.
Well, heck, if the atheists moved here, they could take over in one shot.
Yeah, and you know, I was in Canada recently. I have lots of nice things to say. Gets a little cold though.
Yeah.
But the good news
now
is
we're in the middle of a heat wave, a drought actually in this area.
Yeah, the good news is though things are improving, and I think that they are inevitably going to continue improving because reason wins out, reality wins out. It's just the way things go. But on that note, Mark, I got to let you go. We're going to try and get some more callers before the end of the show. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks, Jen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We've got Micah and Charlotte. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Good.
Pretty good. What'd you call about?
I just wanted to call about the validity of the resurrection of Jesus and how it relates to the origin of life.
Sorry, one more time?
The validity of the resurrection of Jesus and how it relates to the origin of life.
Okay.
And here's my question. Since you're an atheist and I'm a theist, we both kind of have different viewpoints. I believe that the origin of life is supernatural, and you believe that it's natural.
Yes.
And would you agree that, I'm not saying there is evidence that Jesus rose from the dead. If Jesus was dead for 3 days and he rose from the dead, would you agree that would be a supernatural event? That it's not something that we see in the natural world, so therefore it's not science?
I don't know. That's not enough details. See, one of the things is that death isn't extremely well defined. We pull people back from the brink of death.
Yeah.
So I can't say for sure that it would be supernatural. I can say that it would certainly be
extraordinary.
It would certainly be extraordinary and would seem to be supernatural.
Okay, right. So if Jesus and all of his cells were dead for 3 days, and somehow his whole entire body was regenerated after 3 days, would you agree that that would be something supernatural? At least something that's not seen
we don't
in
know.
the natural world.
We just said it would be extraordinary, but we wouldn't necessarily call it
the fact that something
supernatural.
hasn't previously been observed doesn't mean that it's necessarily unnatural. What I said when I answered your question is that I don't know what I would consider it. There's not enough information, but I'm willing to grant that that sort of thing might be perceived as supernatural and could in fact be.
Okay. But you would definitely agree, since it's not something that is seen in the natural world, that at this point in time it cannot be considered science, right?
We don't know.
It can't be considered science. See, everything about the phrasing about this is kind of clumsy.
I'm assuming you mean that there wouldn't be a scientific explanation, and the answer is we don't know.
Right.
Well, no, there would be. The answer would be no, because we would have the very first occurrence, and we would then need to investigate it in order to determine. So at the time that it occurred, there wouldn't be a scientific explanation. But there's lots of things for which we don't currently have a scientific explanation. That doesn't make them supernatural.
Right, exactly. So if that were to, if Jesus' resurrection were indeed true, it would not be something that would have empirical support. We wouldn't have any scientific theory of how it happened, right?
Well, are you saying that we couldn't use the scientific method to investigate it?
We could, but since it's something that we don't see in that, and what I'm saying is that there is a historical claim that Jesus rose from the dead.
Yes.
Okay.
And since we do not see anything, we don't see men dying for 3 days and resurrecting in the natural world that we have today. Would everyone agree with that?
Yes,
That's
I'm unaware
correct.
of any confirmed case of that happening ever, including Jesus.
Right. Okay. So I guess here's the entire point I'm trying to make. Okay, is that we both agree that if Jesus did rise from the dead, there's no scientific evidence in the natural world that such a thing can happen, that it's actually a natural process, that a man can be dead for 3 days, his cells be dead, and somehow be regenerated after 3 days. Okay? So by your own logic...
Well, hang on. Before we get to my own logic, two quick things. You're saying we agree on something, and then the way you phrase it sounds like it was pre-written and doesn't match what I actually agreed to. And then as far as my own logic, there's just logic. I don't have my own special type of logic.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But based on what you're telling me, is what I'm saying. Based on what we both agree on, actually.
Okay.
So, but based on what we both agree on and what you just told me, the origin of life when non-living material became living is not science.
No,
and
that's
not even supernatural.
You didn't listen to a word I said, did you?
No, I did.
I was very, very clear that the mere fact that we haven't observed something before doesn't tell us necessarily that it's supernatural. And the fact that we don't currently have a scientific explanation for something doesn't tell us that it's supernatural.
Right, and even if it's not supernatural, if we don't, for example, if we don't see men resurrecting after 3 days in the natural world, science is what we can observe in the natural world, correct?
Science is the explanations for what we observe in the natural world.
Yeah, it's a method. It's not a body of knowledge.
A theory. It's not necessarily science. That's what a theory is.
Whoa.
No, wait. Give me your definition of a theory.
A theory is an explanation that is based on the facts that what we observe. In other words, we have a set of facts, and a theory is what explains those facts.
Right.
But you're aware that theories
it's a broad model
are developed from doing science, and that theories are the highest point of science, the graduation point, so to speak.
Right.
That there's nothing higher than a theory in science.
Right. Exactly. So what I'm saying is that there are no facts that we have that support the idea that a man can be dead for 3 days and resurrect. In the same sense that there are no facts that support the idea that non-living material can become living.
Yeah,
there actually is. There are facts that support that.
All right, so this is the point, okay? If you believe that it's not supernatural, so there's two problems here.
There's more than that.
Yeah. 'There's more than that. Yeah.
There's probably quite a few. If you believe that it's not supernatural, if the resurrection of Jesus is either supernatural or it's not, there's no facts to support that such a thing can happen, it's the exact same thing with the origin of life.
Yeah, except for two things. Number one, you've got a dichotomy there that is, while it's valid, is completely crazy. It's not a way that you want to phrase things of it's either supernatural or we don't have scientific facts. But the thing is, when you're talking about abiogenesis, we do have facts that have been investigated by science. We don't fully understand abiogenesis. We don't understand everything about it, but we have, in the laboratory, demonstrated that it is possible for natural material, by purely natural mechanisms, to give rise to the building blocks of life.
Right, right. And here's the issue of that. I've actually studied this quite a bit. This whole theory of abiogenesis can't even get to the step of producing a protein. What we can do is...
No. For somebody who's studied this quite a bit, I just... Yeah. This is baffling because...
Let me give an example.
Can't get to the step of producing a protein. Do you realize how much further down the chain a protein is than just the building blocks of living material? That you're objecting to somebody not being able to create a 747.
Right, and I'm assuming you know what a protein is, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. However, I'm wondering why we're going through all of this, because there's a fundamental problem at the base of this. And one of them is this. There's absolutely nothing that we can investigate with regarding the resurrection of Jesus. It's a historical claim. There's no scientific evidence for it. And so
is abiogenesis.
No.
It's also a historical claim.
No, because abiogenesis, we can never say what actually happened, how our life formed, unless we actually find historic evidence to support that. But the process, the scientific investigation of the possibility of abiogenesis demonstrates that it's possible, or that it's not impossible. And therefore, you're not in this situation like you are with a resurrection, where you have no examples of anything like this, something that was living, become dead, and then become living without any sort of action taking place on it.
Right. And what I was going back to is I'm not even on here to say that there is evidence that Jesus rose from the dead.
Okay, because that's what, first of all, that's what the screener says you said. The screener says that you said, I think there's scientific evidence in favor of the resurrection, and I'd like to present it. Was that not true?
Yeah. I think if abiogenesis is true, then it's just as valid that a man possibly could raise from the dead.
Well, I think that if it's demonstrated that abiogenesis can occur, then yeah, it may be possible to demonstrate that there's a scientific method by which somebody who was dead can return to being alive.
Right.
Okay? But that's all still natural. And it doesn't mean that it was likely to have happened in the first century.
Right. And since you were talking about abiogenesis and I was actually talking about protein, I do have a very simple question, assuming you know what proteins are. In order to get a protein to form, the amino acids do not fold themselves into a protein. You understand that, right?
I'm aware of that.
Yes.
Okay. They need a ribosome, correct?
Where are we going, and why are we going there here?
Yeah.
Why aren't you calling science shows?
Well, I just assume the atheists, study science quite a bit.
I am. Here's the thing. No, I'm no expert in any of the science stuff. Jen knows this stuff better than I am, so I should shut up, except for one little thing. How is any of this relevant to whether or not there's a God? Because that's what this is all about, right? You believe there's a God and I don't, right?
Right. And I think it is relevant because I think I can easily show how abiogenesis is scientifically impossible.
Aha! Now we get to the crux of it. This is why I said there's a big old fat problem at the back end of this. Your position is that abiogenesis is impossible. You are making a claim that something cannot naturally occur. Not that it has not, but that it cannot.
Right.
Why would you call into a public access TV show with no scientists to make the claim that this is scientifically impossible? Why aren't you publishing papers and actually talking to scientists about this? And why aren't other scientists making the same assertions that you are? Why are they actually investigating to find out whether or not it is possible? And why does the evidence seem to preclude the impossibility of it?
I don't know if I caught everything that you said, but I have spoken to scientists before.
You have what?
I have spoken to scientists before.
Okay, and what did they tell you?
I never got a response.
Oh, yeah, well, they probably were busy
Which is why
investigating
this call
how
is over.
abiogenesis
Which is
occurred.
why this call is over. If you're going to claim that a scientific position, which has not been confirmed, and people are investigating, if you're going to claim that it's scientifically impossible, you need to do it with scientists. Second of all, no, there's no second of all. Thanks for calling.
Actually, he should be having this conversation with your wife. She's in a better position than either of us to talk about this.
Yeah, she's at home ripping her hair out right now.
Yeah.
It's just so baffling to me because, first of all, you don't understand the limitations.
Yeah.
That's the key thing here. Science is not about philosophical naturalism, which is the philosophical position that the natural world is all there is. Science is about methodological naturalism, which means that the natural world is all we can address with reason and evidence in our scientific toolkit. That's what science is about. And so science would never assert that abiogenesis is impossible, only that we haven't demonstrated that it is possible. There's this idea called a null hypothesis, which you should look up because you're ignoring it to your peril. And it's allowing you to confuse yourself into thinking that you've come to the conclusion justifiably that this is impossible, therefore God. And that's boneheadedly wrong. Sorry.
Yeah. I think Gary's been on for a
Sure.
while.
Hey, Gary in Bristol, how are you?
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Tracy.
It's Jen, not Tracy.
Oh, sorry. I can't actually, I haven't actually got TV, so I don't actually know who's on today.
Yeah, you know, we tweet this, and it's published on the website and everything, so you know who's going to be on.
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to know how come you guys, don't believe in, God or anything?
Which God?
What? Okay, any God. Just why don't you believe in God at all? What's a supernatural being, minds, whatever?
I've not seen evidence sufficient to convince me that such a God exists.
That answer your question? Evidently.
Apparently it did. All right. Well, that was easy.
Yeah. Thanks for waiting, Gary. Isaac in Fresno, how are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
right.
Not too bad.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Okay. Did the screener already tell you my question?
It says here the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world?
Yes, I imagine you disagree with that position?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Perhaps this would work better first if you presented your reasoning.
I'm sorry, hang on a second. Let me back up for a second. My position is that the Catholic Church itself has done good. So if the only argument is that the Catholic Church has done good and therefore it's a force for good in the world, okay. My objection to the labeling of the Catholic Church as a force for good is the things that they do that aren't good.
Okay.
And my position would be that Catholics have done good in the world.
Yes.
But the Catholic Church is not a force for good.
Well, I mean, it's still people. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
I don't want to get down to the building hasn't done anything, but yeah. Examples?
Yes, examples
Sure.
of why you think the world will be better without the Catholic Church.
Wow.
AIDS in Africa.
AIDS in Africa, Inquisition, the idea that there are special people who need to relate God's message to you, creating a kind of an incredibly unequal society, indulgences, opposing contraception pretty much everywhere.
Which is your AIDS in Africa, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The extreme, how did I not go to this first? The extremely illegal actions that make them a corrupt criminal organization of moving pedophiles around from church to church over a colossal amount of time in order to save their image and allow these predators to keep raping children. How's that for not a force for good in the world?
Well, my first response to that is I'll pose the same question you posed to the gentleman earlier who was talking about scientists. You mentioned, why aren't scientists contradicting his statements? Well, why aren't litigators contradicting your statements? If that were really the case, the Attorney General would have taken the Catholic Church to task on that a long time ago.
Well, no. So, part of the problem.
No, that's beside the point.
No, it's
wait,
beside the
it's
point.
not.
It's post of complaints within the organization, and you've even labeled it as criminal. But the thing is, why in the world don't you bother to reform the organization rather than simply to destroy it?
Because I'm not a member of it.
I don't care to reform it. Why would I care to reform it? First of all, you're not going to just sit here and come up with fallacy after. Well, if what you said was true, then certainly the legislature should be going after them. Have you looked in Ireland lately where that's exactly what they're doing? When you're talking about an organization that is systematically set up to avoid and inhibit criminal investigations, it's really, really hard, especially when you talk about something that's rich and filthy rich and powerful. The fact that it hasn't happened yet, oh wait, no, that's not true. It's happening now. So your initial rebuttal here is absolute nonsense.
Sir, that's funny. You haven't even heard my entire argument because you haven't allowed me to finish.
Would you like me to allow you to finish, or would you like me to hang up on you?
Yes, please. Most certainly. Thank you. Now, the police force exists. It's a necessary force to keep criminals away. Yet there exists corruption in the police force, and they do things far worse than the Catholic Church. And mind you, these pedophiles would have done what they did.
Pause. I'm going to let you finish. Pause.
But we do not.
I put you on hold in case you didn't hear that. Nobody can hear you but you right now. So you're paused.
We cannot get rid of a necessary system.
You're still yelling into the phone.
Yeah.
Sir, I do not want to have a shouting match.
You're not having a shouting match with anybody except yourself. Your ass is on hold.
That would be most appreciated.
You don't understand. If you would pause for a second, I'm trying to explain to you that you're on hold so that I can respond to your nonsensical position here.
No, sir, no.
Wow, you don't know what hold means. I'm going to give you exactly one more chance to actually have a conversation here, which is a back and forth, and you're gone. The police is a necessary organization, and it's worth reforming. The Catholic Church is not a necessary organization. It is a nonsensical organization. A bunch of fat, lazy do-nothings who have been living off the public dole for centuries. The fact that they can do good is a testament to the fact that there are good people who will do good. But the organization is corrupt. It is poisoned to its core, and it serves no essential good purpose, no true purpose. It's lie after lie, promoting harm to real people, and you can sit there and engage in histrionics and yelling at yourself on hold all you want, but the Catholic Church is not a force for good, and fuck you for saying so. Joey in Los Angeles, thanks for waiting.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me.
You got like 3 minutes maybe. I apologize for the...
No problem. I just had a question pertaining to a show you had a long time ago, and you had said that you didn't find the problem of evil argument to be quite compelling, and I found that quite fascinating because I've always been saying the same thing to myself because I never found it relevant to whether a God actually exists or not. I'm more concerned with whether God exists, not so much the character. And so I know you're more than aware of the Way of the Master Ministries. I happen to live kind of close to them, and I see them very often. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I come into contact with people that are heckling them, trying to have conversations with them. And usually the first thing they go to is the full intolerance card, which consists of, why don't you just let everybody believe what they want to believe? And,
we do.
And of course, this actually gets a response from the crowd. They start cheering, but I don't like that argument at all. Because
you're saying that the atheists are yelling back at the Way of the Master people, saying just let people believe what they want?
Yeah, and personally, I really wish that these atheists would understand that if these people we need to understand that if they truly believe the things that they believe in, then they're doing exactly what they should be doing because they're taught by the Bible to preach and proclaim the gospel. They should be doing that, so you shouldn't be mad at them.
No, if it was true, then wouldn't you want to know? What you're seeing partly is first of all, this let everybody believe what they want to believe is kind of a stupid argument no matter which side it comes from, because of course you're going to let everybody believe. How could you can't stop people from believing something, but what we're really talking about is we should encourage people to believe that which is true because it benefits them and all of us. So it's not that we're attempting to implement draconian measures to control what people think. We're actually trying to encourage people by reason, and so are they. It's just that their reasoning's flawed. And a lot of what you're seeing, I think, is frustration at seeing the same people out there preaching the same thing over and over again when it's failed, like miserably failed.
Yeah, precisely.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the atheists who say, hey, just let them believe what they want to believe, that's fine, except, as Matt said, you can't make them not believe what they believe. But you don't have to leave their assertions unchallenged. And if what they're saying is don't challenge their assertions because somehow it's intolerant, I disagree with that. That's based on a premise that there's no harm in what they're saying. And I think there is harm. And I think we're right to point that out.
Yeah, well, precisely. It's like I've heard Matt say our thoughts inform our actions, and that's why the truth actually does matter. And so for that reason, that was the question I wanted to propose is, in addition to the problem of evil of argument, which I also don't find very compelling, what are some other atheist arguments that you guys don't necessarily find compelling either, and what are your reasons for it? From both Matt and Jen.
Go ahead.
I guess one of the things that I dislike is people that argue against Christianity by leading with the similarity of Christianity to previous religions. There might be some similarities, but all that proves is that these ideas were fairly common. It doesn't prove that Christianity was a ripoff of any other religion.
Yeah, and it doesn't demonstrate that it's false.
Right.
My thing is that I think different arguments for different situations. There may be some situation where in the right context any argument might work. So it's not so much I want to go around saying, oh, these are arguments I don't think atheists should use. I don't want to cite like Answers in Genesis has. It's just, this is my personal taste. I understand the problem of evil has a place. I just don't really find it that useful most of the time. Maybe it's my Southern Baptist upbringing that makes me view this differently. We are completely out of time. They've already posted the credits. I apologize. Thanks so much, everybody who called. Thanks to the people who actually make the show possible, who were listed and gone. Yes. We'll see you all next week. Bullshit level.